Hello, we're here to interview Laura Zalbala, and we're going to find out about her journey to America and how she got here. So, what country and city are you originally from?
I am from Mexico, and I'm specifically from a city called Ciudad Juarez. It is actually a border town in the state of Chihuahua. The state of Chihuahua happens to be the largest state in Mexico. And as I mentioned, it is a border town. On the U.S. side, the city is El Paso, Texas. And I pretty much, again, I was born in Juarez, but grew up in that area.
So, why and how did you come to America?
So I mentioned the border town because that's exactly how I came to America. As a matter of fact, I had an interest in going to college in the United States, and I finished my high school education in Mexico. And when I finished my high school education, I had an option to either stay and study in Mexico or study in the US. And it was just the best decision for us to migrate to America instead. And I ended up applying for the university in El Paso. And got accepted there. And I had to take an English test. And so I enrolled, and that's how I ended up in America. And the reason why I had that option is because my dad had already been working in the United States. And we went through the process of getting permanent residency in the US. But we didn't move right away because my parents thought that it was best for me to finish high school in Mexico, which is what I did.
So, did you and your family come to the United States together?
We did. The few of us that were left at home. So I'm the youngest of 11 kids. A lot of my siblings were already married. They had their own lives. And so back at home, it was just my parents and two of my siblings, and myself, because I'm the youngest. So we all waited until I finished high school, and then we all moved, sold a home there, and then moved to El Paso.
So, what did you do for a living in your country if you had a job?
I didn't have a job. I just went to school. Yeah, I was, let me think about this. I was 18 when I moved to El Paso.
So now that you're here, what do you do for a living here?
I went to school for business administration, and then I work at a bank in human resources, and I've been doing HR work for 20 plus years now. So that's what I do.
So, what was your first job when you came to America?
My first job was I work at Wendy's. I needed a job while in college, so that was the best choice I had, and I learned that I didn't want to do that forever. So I probably worked there for about maybe 6 months, and then after that I took actually at the university in the office that organizes all the student activities, and so that was a lot of fun. That was my next job, which was for me a better job because it was an office job instead of Wendy's.
So now that you experience school in America and in Mexico, how is it different?
I think so. I don't know if this is exactly a good comparison because again, I went to elementary, middle, and high school in Mexico versus college in the US. So I mean, I think even here in America, there's a lot of differences once you go to college. I guess the major difference that I remember when I went to school in college was I think here in the US, there's a huge emphasis on reading and writing and composition. I remember that emphasis in college, which was hard for me because, again, English as a second language. And I can say that while in high school, I don't remember that much emphasis in writing in Mexico. Mm-hmm. The emphasis was math. I mean, we did a lot of math at a very young age, math and physics and science. So there was a lot of focus on that. And that's what I remember. Probably that was the major difference. And I even noticed that, with my kids in school here, there's just a lot of emphasis on reading and writing, which I think is really good.
So, speaking of the differences in Mexico and America, how was the culture shock experience in America when you first arrived here? Did it surprise you a lot? Do you have examples?
I don't know that I had a major culture shock necessarily because I was born in a border town, right? So I was used to coming back and forth when I was, once we had a tourist visa. So I was able to just go back and forth and got to know the two cities pretty well. I think once I lived there, maybe the greatest culture shock for me was just how quiet it was, on the American side, as opposed to living in Mexico. It was just very different, right? I mean, you come back from work, you're in the evening, you sit outside in the patio, so everybody else, kids playing on the street, vendors walking by selling fruit, those kind of things. So there was just a lot of activity in my neighborhood in terms of, again, just engaging with people. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't the case in the US. You go to work, you get back from work, you get into your house, you cook, you go on your activities, and there's just not so much life. I mean, what do you say it? There's not a lot of activity outside in the neighborhood unless it's planned. And that wasn't the case in Mexico. I mean, you could be outside till 11 o'clock if you wanted to, and you're just like hanging out with the neighbors. I mean, and that's just what you do.
So how are the customs different in America than in Mexico?
Wow. There's just a lot of differences. I will say in Mexico, there's a lot of different customs related to that are very much driven by religion as well. So a lot of activities, at church, for example, I remember a lot of activities back home, carnivals outside. Again, a lot of the vendors outside selling things that they would make at home, people selling food outside on the street. You just don't see those kind of things. Holidays, again, very much center around religion and family. I think here in the US, there are some customs that are like that, but I would say they're more center around historical aspects that we as a country celebrate, right? Like Independence Day, Veterans Day, Memorial Day. I mean, those are holidays that are centered around that. We obviously had our own share, but there's a lot of other customs and traditions based on religion as well. And I mean, gosh, food is always part of every single tradition or custom that we have. So a lot of music, for sure, which is probably something that I don't see a lot in the US.
So, do you celebrate customs that are from your home country here in America?
I do, some of them I do. I mean, we celebrate both, I will say, because I would say that my family and I have really done a good job immersing ourselves and understanding the culture here as well. As far as traditions, with my family, I will say that, during Christmas, right, we celebrate Noche Buena, which is Christmas Eve. So we always celebrate Noche Buena because, again, and that's something that I grew up, celebrating. You gather as a family, you wait for Christmas. Versus, I think here in America, it's pretty much Christmas Day that you celebrate. We celebrate Our Lady of Guadalupe, celebration in December as well. And so we, again, do that at church too. So that's another tradition that we celebrate. We started celebrating Dia de los Muertos recently, so we made our own ofrenda, to remember our loved ones. So we started doing that as well. Those are the ones that I can think of right now.
So, I'm going back to the topic about how you came to America and went to college. So, did you and your did your siblings take the same paths that you took and went to school, came to America?
No, I think I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I'm the baby of 11. So my siblings took a little bit of a different path. I will say the older ones, so the 3 oldest ones, they didn't go to college, but they became business owners. So they learned this trade. They learned it from one of our uncles, who showed them the business of window coverings and manufacturing. So mini blinds, vertical blinds, draperies, you name it. I mean, they make that. And then a couple of them actually have their own businesses, manufacturing businesses as well. And so they learned that trade, and that's how they ended up coming here. So they started working here. One of them married somebody here from the U.S., and they have their businesses in California. Then another set of my sisters, they were married and they were living in Mexico. And then through the immigration process, my older brother was able to get them permanent residency, and then they moved here into the U.S. So again, 2 of my sisters actually work for my brother in their business. Another sister opened her own business. She has a store in Texas. And then another sister works for the public school system in El Paso. So they didn't go to college, but they're all pretty much dedicated to the window covering business for the most part, all of them.
So, what is something you miss in your home country that's not in America?
The food. I mean, we have some food here, some Mexican food, but gosh, the ingredients, the availability of the ingredients that you need, right, to make like the real Mexican food, I mean, that's missing. That's probably the one thing that I miss the most. Just the food, the ingredients, the atmosphere. You just go out and
coming together.
Everybody comes together, gets together, those type of things. And that's just a lot of fun.
So, all in all, are you glad you came to America? Do you think moving countries changed who you are as a person or made you see things differently?
I am. I am glad that I moved here for a variety of reasons. So, I will confess, I initially didn't want to go to college in the U.S.
Oh, really?
I actually wanted to go to college in Mexico. I wanted to continue going there. And the school that I wanted to go to was a really good school, but it was also a very expensive school. So my parents could not afford to send me to that school. It was like an equivalent of an Ivy League school here in the U.S. So too much. But my dad said, you can go to the U.S. and, you're able to go to school there. We're going to be able to, pay for it. And I was lucky enough that I was able to get some loans too. So I'm like, okay, plan B. But in a way, I was very happy because I also wanted to learn English. So I figured, what a better way to learn the language than going to school there, and then I'm going to be forced to learn it no matter what. So I'm very happy about that because I was able to get my education, and I've had a pretty good career, for about 25 years now. And then when I think about, what if I would have stayed in Mexico? Think about the political environment in my country, the corruption. There's just been a lot of violence also in my hometown. A lot of violence from drug cartels, a lot of crime, and it wasn't safe for a number of years. So part of me thinks that it was probably the best decision. Not probably. It was the best decision that my parents made, and specifically my mom. She was the one insisting that we would come here so that I could go to school. And I just think about our safety, and think about the fact that also when it comes to employment opportunities, it's not that easy in Mexico. It's really more about who you know than your own merit. So just because of all of that, and then of course, I met my husband here and raised my family here. So of course, I'm very happy that I'm here. I'm very happy to live in Florida now. I found that even though my family is still in the Southwest or in the West Coast, this was also a really good decision professionally, to move here, because I've gotten a lot of support and I've learned a lot than if I would have stayed in El Paso.
Would you live there again, back in Mexico?
I would live back in Mexico. I don't know that I would live back in Ciudad Juarez, where I was born. I wouldn't mind living back in Mexico. Mexico City as an example, or Monterrey, or one of the big cities. I wouldn't mind doing that. I wouldn't mind living back in Mexico if I retire one day and have a nice little house by the beach. That would be great. And I contemplated, relocating with my family a couple of years back. We had an opportunity, but we ended up deciding not to. It wasn't the right time for us.
Okay, well, that's it. That's our interview with Laura Zappa.
Oh,
Thank
wow.
you. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. No, thank you for your interest.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Good luck.
So after the interview with Laura Zabla, a quick summary of that was basically she was born in Chihuahua, Mexico, took up all her years of education through senior year, and eventually moved to Juarez. She wanted to go to college in her home country, but there was just not enough money to support that because of all her 11 siblings and everything else. It just, her parents couldn't support that. So she did something for herself and went to the United States and went to college there at El Paso University. She spent time and patience and money there. She, with all the hard work, she graduated with a bachelor's and eventually a master's degree. And she made something for herself. She made a living. She got a job. she had job opportunities in El Paso. Then eventually she moved to Florida and just started a family. She met her husband there at church, and she made a living, got a better job in Florida. She started family, had kids, and she would move back to Mexico, which is very surprising. She moved back and she would just retire there, so it's pretty cool. And what I can take from this interview is that you will get somewhere with hard work and patience. That's what I learned from my mom, is that to do great things, you just need hard work, basically. And don't take things for granted. Get what you want by working hard, working hard. And yeah, that's basically it. And don't take anything for granted. So yeah. And my point of view when comparing her life journey to mine is hers was very difficult, very hard. She went through many things to get to where she is now. She didn't have many opportunities as I do now at such a young age. She barely had any of that in Mexico. She barely had that. I had more opportunities than her in the United States. Better schools, better opportunities in general, easier access to colleges. With her job, we're more well off than she was. She was very poor in Mexico. So all in all, her life journey is no comparison to mine. She really did a lot to get to where she is, and I can't even compare. So yeah. So after that interview, I really learned a lot from my mom, and that was her journey to America. So thank you.
In Mexico, which is what I did.
So did you and your family come to the United States together, or were you alone?
We came together. Again, English wasn't my second language. Oh God.
Are you serious? I can edit it. It's okay.
So we start over?
No, I'll do. What did you do for a living?
No. Well,
Let me see.